Hey guys, I wanted to make a video on the anatomy of a balisong. I don't really see any videos that were like this, so I thought I'd make it. Basically, I'm just going to go over, fairly quickly the different names and parts of a balisong. This is a Benchmade Model 42, although the parts I'm going to tell you are basically, you know, the same throughout all balisongs. Some features I'm going to show you might not be on your balisong, but they are, uh, features or parts of balisongs in general. I'm going to start off with the blade. Uh, Obviously, you have the tip of the blade. Fairly self-explanatory. You have your edge, your cutting edge. On this blade, this is a Weehawk style blade. You have a false edge, or what's sometimes called a swedge. Basically, you have grind lines as if it was sharpened, but it doesn't come to a point, so it's not sharp. But you have the option to sharpen it if you wanted, a 1.5, sided, cutting edge. I think in America, if you have one side of your blade completely sharpened and half of the other side, I think technically, like for legality reasons, I think it's called a dirk. So if you do decide to sharpen your swedge, make sure that you can legally carry, a dirk in your area. If the full other side or both sides of the blade are completely sharpened, I believe then it's considered a dagger for legality purposes. But anyway, on this Weehawk blade, you have a swedge on the back. Okay, the back of the blade here on all knives is called the spine. Okay, it's the spine of the blade. Just like your body, your spine's on your back. This part underneath where it's sharpened is known as a ricasso. Okay, that's this whole flat part, basically above the handles but below the sharpened blade, or the grinds. In this case, this knife has a choil. A choil is basically kind of a round cutout right below the sharpened edge. And what that does is it gives you a distinctive stop point of where the edge stops. Okay, on a lot of cheaper knives, that's not going to be there, and you kind of have your sharpened edge kind of merge into where your ricasso is, and it just makes for, I guess, it's not as distinguished. It's not as easy to sharpen knives like that. I find anyway. But basically, that's what that is. That choil, the purpose of that is to give you a distinct end of where your sharpened edge is. Then, these two parts pointing out on either side, there's a couple different names for this, but basically these are called guards. Okay, the purpose of a guard is to stop your hand from running up to the blade, the sharpened edge, when you're using it. These are more decorative than functional because they're smaller. So you don't have as much stopping power as a larger guard. Another name for guard is a quillion, sometimes referred to as quillions, and what else? Sometimes they are also referred to as now the name's escaping me, a hilt. That's what it is. So they can be called a guard, a hilt, or a quillion. But they're all the same, different names for the same thing. Then on the bottom of the blade, imagine the handles weren't here, they didn't exist. The whole bottom section of the blade is known as the tang. Okay, now this is true in all knives. This is the tang of the knife. You have a pin in here, which is known as a tang pin, for obvious reasons. And the purpose of the tang pin is to keep the handles from coming completely together. Okay, and I'll explain that in just a minute when I go over the handle parts. Then you have here the pivot screws or pivot pins, depending on what you have. In this case, they're screws, so they're pivot screws, and they're screws that go into the pivot of the knife. And basically, it's called a pivot because the handles pivot around that point. Same with folding knives. Your pivot screw, in most cases, it'll be one screw because you're connecting one handle to the blade. It's where the blade pivots, where it's connected to the handle. In this case, you have two handles, so you have two pivot screws. And like I said, basically that's where the handle is pivoting from, and it's where the blade is connected to the handles itself. Let's see, what else do we have? Now let's move on to the handles. Balisongs have two handles, as most of you know. In this case, this Benchmade Model 42 has what are called Tang cups, and these little cutouts or cups accommodate that Tang pin. Okay, so it recesses just a little bit into the handle here. And again, the purpose of that is to keep the handles from touching. First of all, it reduces wear on the knife, but the real function is to keep the right amount of space so that this is the latch on the knife. It keeps the right amount of space so that the latch will tightly lock that in place. If this Tang pin and cups didn't exist, well, the cups aren't really necessary. That's just a nice feature. If the Tang pin didn't exist, the handles would completely touch, and then therefore your gap, it wouldn't be right, and you'd have a loose locking mechanism. But like I said, this is the latch, and the latch is basically how a balisong locks. Okay, it can lock in the open position, when you're using the knife, or it can lock in the closed position. This is true for all. Well, I shouldn't say all, because Spyderco's balisong does not lock opened, but I believe that's for legality purposes. But basically all, or excuse me, yeah, it won't lock open, but it will lock closed. But anyway, that is the latch. A nice innovative feature that a lot of balisongs of today have is what's called a latch gate, and that's this little piece of metal here. Okay, and what that does is prevents the latch from coming in contact with the handle, or excuse me, the blade. Okay, on older balisongs, you'll see that the latch flops, from one side all the way to the other because it lacks that piece of metal here. And what happens is the latch is now in the way of the blade, and of course, when flipping around, the blade or the edge is going to hit the latch. It's going to cause damage to the latch, and more importantly, or more destructively, it's going to cause damage to your edge. So that's a nice little feature that Benchmade uses. A lot of other balisongs use that today as well. So I believe that's all the parts to the balisong. If I'm not mistaken, I might have missed one or two. I'm sure after I watch this video, I'll go back and think like, oh crap, I forgot to talk about this. But for now, that's basically all the parts of a balisong and the names for them. Speaking of balisong, I wanted to give a little shout out to a really good online friend. I met him on Blade forums. His name is Chris, but he often goes by Cassif or by BallyGuy76 on the forums and stuff like that. He was actually probably definitely in my opinion, the very best balisong flipper or manipulator of his age. He joined the forums very young, and he was the youngest guy in there. And I have to say, he was definitely more mature. He definitely acted more mature than he, his age showed. But he had a great respect for the balisong knife. He became an awesome flipper. If you have the time, you got to check out his videos. Here on YouTube, he goes by the name Cassif, which is spelled Caseph. Currently, he has 2 videos on there on YouTube. One is a great review on the Emerson Mini Commander, and another one is a pretty cool move he made up called Unzenful. He's got an instructional video on there. But I have to say, awesome guy. Longtime friend now. He knows what he's talking about, the knives, and real passion for balisongs and flipping. But like I said, I just want to give you a little shout out to him because I started off helping him with a lot of stuff and knives, and later he helped me to figure out a lot of stuff that I wanted to know. So he's been a really good online friend. But definitely, if you have time, check out his videos. Pretty cool stuff. But that's the anatomy of a balisong. I hope this was a little informative and gave you a little understanding of the different parts. So now, of course, after I talk about everything, I realized what I forgot. Within the 2 handles here, you have the handle where the latches are connected to is known as the latch handle, or sometimes known as the bite handle, and the other handle is known as the safe handle. So that's one thing I did forget to mention. But hopefully now when people refer to different parts of the balisong, you'll understand what they're talking about. That was the whole purpose of this video, just to give you a quick lesson on the different parts and the names for them. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.